I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you are a weary, eternal philosopher. You know, someone who has sat in the freezing dark for millennia, literally watching the stars exhaust themselves and die out. Well, bringing that kind of cosmic perspective, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a breathtaking, graphic novel-style journey right into the heart of reality itself. We're going to explore a really dark, beautiful Gothic fable about two cosmic entities facing off at the absolute edge of existence. And through this, we'll unpack a deeply philosophical narrative about truth, about meaning, and about the terrifying, heavy silence of the void.
Right out of the gate, we're hit with this chilling inquiry whispered from the shadows of the heavens. Is the wound not simply a hole where the light goes to die? It totally challenges everything we assume about pain and meaning. Like, is our suffering actually a crucible for finding truth? Or is it just an empty void where all warmth and light just vanish? This really sets the stage for the deeply existential conflict we're grappling with today.
And that brings us to this hissing realization from the verdant dragon. It perfectly exposes the core conflict. As the dragon is struggling with the absolute despair of a rotting, godless reality, he senses this presence in the dark. He realizes that while our protagonists are walking this grueling, harrowing path downward into the depths, there's someone, or something, walking the exact opposite way. Two mysterious figures, two completely diametrically opposed paths, both navigating the terrifying edge of the void. Okay, let's get into Section 1, The Honest Bridge, which takes place at the freezing pinnacle at the zenith of the great noon. To really understand this clash, picture a Gothic cathedral pinnacle just suspended in the cosmos. It's freezing, it's desolate, and the silence of heaven is just roaring with this unwavering, unconditional presence. The burden our protagonist carries here is known as the uncanny synthesis. Now, what does that mean? It's the agonizing meeting place of the human and the holy. But here's the catch. To achieve this, you can't just look up to some pristine, perfect heaven. No, it requires an inverted journey. It demands that you walk down through the grit, the rot, and the absolute failures of the world to find what the source material calls the true thing.
So who exactly is taking on this inverted journey? Enter the uncanny jester. He's this motley instrument standing on a stone ledge out there in the freezing void, and he essentially acts as an honest bridge. The jester understands himself as merely the angle at which light falls to reveal the hidden rot of the universe, and he carries what's called the fact of the burning, the painful, undeniable truth of existence. He carries it as a necessary, albeit incredibly heavy, gift for the soul.
Moving on to Section 2, we explore this godless, rotting reality focused on the verdant dragon's emerald scales. What's wild is that even before we actually see our antagonist, his horrific approach is deeply felt by everyone. The seraphim gargoyle, literally a creature made of stone, standing on the precipice of this rotting reality, feels the wind of this being's walking and shivers. As the great star above starts vibrating with this deep, cool blue register, this blue shadow represents absolute nothingness. The companions can physically feel the chill of a nihilistic force approaching, a spirit that simply denies everything they are fighting so hard to uncover. This brings us right into Section 3, Descent into the Shadows, and Unfurling the Wings of Blighted Revelation. Let's look at how this three-act structure actually plays out. So the journey demands a literal and philosophical descent into the Valley of Shadows. It happens in 3 steps. First, you stand at that freezing pinnacle. Second, you unfurl your wings, totally accepting the blighted revelation of a deeply flawed universe. And third, you descend into the unsaid rooms below. It isn't just a physical movement, you know. True understanding here demands walking down into the 10,000 hells of unspoken truths. They are willingly diving into the very spaces where society hides its deepest wounds. And let me tell you, this descent requires immense courage. The uncanny jester carries that fact of the burning light directly into the dark, keeping a sacred vigil for a waking world. He uses what the fable calls the geometry of the grotesque to reach the most heavily defended hearts. It is an agonizing process. He's making the familiar feel unhomely and forcing the world to finally look at its own hidden spectrum of failures. Which leads us to Section 4, The Sapphire Reflection and Awakening the Spirit That Denies. This is where we meet the prophet of sapphire light, and he is terrifying. He's a nihilistic cosmic jester born right from the shimmer of a new, icy brilliance at the threshold of the heavens. He is literally the not self-made flesh.
His sapphire radiance washes over the world, but not in a revealing way. It bathes everything in a singular, icy indifference. When his bells ring, they aren't heralding any kind of truth. They ring as the dead silence of a cosmic joke that has absolutely no punchline.
So let's put them side by side. On one hand, you have the uncanny jester. He has crossed the uncanny mirror to speak from inside the wound of reality. On the other hand, the sapphire prophet remains completely safe at the edge of the void. He refuses the sacred debt of honesty and entirely avoids the pain of the ember. He represents a totally different, much colder reaction to a meaningless universe.
Let's break down the prophet's philosophy, because it's devastating. He firmly believes that blissful ignorance is the universe's only mercy, which makes self-awareness the ultimate cruelty. He looks down at our societal structures, what's referred to as the structural glue of Wotan, and sees nothing but a comedic performance by an architect who is terrified of reality. He completely rejects the violet coin of shared reckoning, seeing it as just a useless weight dragging the soul down. Really, he just wants all of our architecture of convenience to vanish smoothly into the ice.
Now we hit Section 5, Truth versus Meaning, exploring these opposite paths of descent and ascent. This is the core philosophical debate of the whole story. Look at their trajectories. The uncanny jester embraces the descent, right? He walks into the 10,000 hells to uncover foundational truth and find that agonizing meeting place of the human and the holy. But the prophet walks an upward path. He ascends toward absolute nothingness. The text beautifully identifies this as a hero's false summit of vanity. He's just seeking to seal up those defended hearts forever with his flawless sapphire geometry. This quote right here perfectly captures the absolute nihilism of the prophet. He represents the path where the mask and the face never meet because he believes there is no face beneath the cosmic porcelain. He doesn't think there is a true thing to find. He believes that if you strip away all the social ceremonies and the masks we wear, you aren't going to find a raw beating heart. You're just going to find nothing at all. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, Honesty in the Void, the final crossroad at the blackened oak.
The seduction of the sapphire void connects so directly to our everyday lives. See, the prophet's path isn't usually some massive, dramatic leap into evil. It is an accumulation of really small, reasonable-seeming choices. It's choosing to turn away from the uncomfortable ember of truth. It's deciding to close the curtain of the soul when things get just a bit too hard, slowly replacing a burning, feeling heart with comfortable and tropic ice.
That unseen prophet is the ultimate challenge to our honest bridge. His very existence proves a terrifying point. The inverted journey into truth is merely a choice. It is not a given. When we face the void, we can meet it with absolute painful honesty, or we can just as easily meet it with silent, nihilistic denial. So, you have to ask, why does the void require absolute honesty? Because the uncanny synthesis, that painful meeting of the human and the holy, is entirely necessary. Surviving a godless, rotting reality actually requires the fire of absolute truth, just to stave off the freezing nothingness. If we don't carry the burning fact, we succumb to the ultimate cruelty of the silent ice. And thus, their paths permanently diverge. One jester leaves the heavens behind to continue the sacred vigil below. He becomes the angle at which light illuminates the rot of the world, acting as a verdict for a world finally waking up. The other ascends into the silent sapphire threshold, becoming the angle at which light is entirely swallowed, his bells silent for a world going to sleep. So, I leave you with this. As you stand at your own crossroads, staring into the roots of your own blackened oak, what are you going to do? Will you embrace the painful ember of truth and carry the fact of the burning down into the shadows? Or will you choose the sapphire ice of denial and let your bells fall silent? The choice, as always, is yours.